Hey guys, today I'm going to walk you through the POSTFLOP module. So the general idea here is that pre-flop we can think of ranges in terms of these hand matrices, which is very convenient because we don't have to deal with individual combinations of starting hands. We can just think in terms of groups of starting hands, so ace king suited rather than ace of clubs, king of clubs, because pre-flop all the different combinations have the same equity. But once we get post-flop, different combinations have very different equities depending on the board texture. And the POSTFLOP module tries to make this complexity manageable. And the way it does that is that instead of having us think in terms of a little over 1,300 different combinations of hands, it tries to get us to think in terms of categories of hands or draws that a player might hold. Let's talk about this in the context of an example. So I start by putting in two starting ranges here. So these are pre-flop ranges, which we got to the flop with. And let's say we're playing a spin and go and the button min raised, maybe top 50% of hands. And then the big blind defended, something like maybe top 40 minus some premium hands. I'll probably shove a lot of pairs. Let's remove these. Maybe something like this. Let's actually maybe add some more hands here. Okay, and then we put in a board. Let's go with Jack 10, 9, and we hit calculate. And now on the right here, we see each range partitioned into its draws and made hands. So if you hover over king high here, you see all the king high hands in player 1's range. If you hover over king high here, you see all the king high hands in player 2's range, and so on. Another way of thinking about this is in terms of the post-flop hand reading process, right? Where you successively narrow your opponent's range depending on his actions, right? So you can use this to study theoretical spots where you just think about, you know, this kind of board, these kind of ranges, how hard do these ranges hit that board? But you can also use it to analyze specific situations that you were in, where you then, you know the action that happened in the hand, and then you sort of remove some of these hand categories from each player's range depending on the action that actually happened in the hand. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So the basic approach is that at the beginning of each street, the union of all these categories makes up the entire range for a player. And all these categories start out selected. Now you can toggle the state of each category to either not select or specifically exclude hands in that category. Let's look at how that works. So let's say we played a hand, and this is the starting range we put villain on, and this is our defending range. And the board came Jack 10, 9. And now we checked, and villain c-bet. And we think, okay, with a pure king high, villain would just check back. Pure ace high as well. So we toggle the state here from selected to not selected, which means don't include hands, these hands that you see highlighted here in the king high category, into the range for the next street, unless some other category further down includes them. So we continue down this list. We get to two overs. Well, we think no, he would just check that back too. And under pair, he would check back. And over pair, we think, okay, he c-bet 50% pot, let's say, and let's say we have reads that his over pairs, he always c-bets 2/3 pot. So we're really sure that he doesn't have an overpair. So what we can do now is we click twice, turning this red, and that means the overpairs, aces, kings, and queens, will definitely not be included in the range for the next street because we explicitly excluded them. So here we just deselected these categories, which means don't include them unless one of these categories includes these same combos. But turning them red means definitely don't include these, even if a future category includes them. And so we kind of, continue on this list. We say bottom pair, nah, he check that back. Second pair, he might c-bet that, that's okay. Top pair, he might c-bet that. Gut shot, just a pure gut shot, probably not. Open and straight draw, we think, no, he always check raises this. So we'll turn that red. Backdoor flush draw on its own, nah, we don't think he's gonna c-bet that, and the flush draw again, we think, no, he always check raises these. And so on. So we go down this list for each category thinking, is the play that we observed consistent with how we think that villain might conceivably play this kind of hand and selecting or deselecting. Now, in some cases, we might want a little bit more control over exactly which combinations are included in the next street range, especially when it comes to these combo draw categories. So for example, we might look at the high card plus gut shot plus BDFD, backdoor flush draw hands, and we see, you know, it's all over the place, king 5, a7, and we don't think villain would play all of these the same. What we can do then is we can right click here, and now we see all the individual combos making up this category. And then for each of these combos, we can again toggle between included, not included, and explicitly excluded. Okay, and so we continue this until we're happy, and we can do it for both players or one player. And down here we see the overall percentage of the starting range that we have still included. So at this stage we have excluded 45% of hands and we have 55% of hands left. And then we can put in, you know, a turn card. Let's say we put in the 5 of spades and we calculate again. And we get to the turn, and now we see the turn starting range is all these things that were left over from the flop, and these are the new categories on the turn. And now you can kind of repeat this process to get to the river, and then finally you see how the ranges are structured on the river. A couple of more things. There is a heat map which shows the equities in percent for all the parts of the range. So here you see, you know, what's left over and sort of the percentage equity that each individual hand group has. And then there's also a graph which shows you the next street equity. So there's two ways to view this, by percentage of cards, which I prefer the per card. So here you see on the x-axis all the possible cards that can come, and then you see how these cards affect equities for each player's range. So you see the best card for player 1's range is the ace of hearts, for example, and conversely it's the worst card for player 2's range. And then there's one final thing I want to note, which is that this module actually does a full range versus range simulation. So blocking effects are fully captured in the percentages that you see here. We do not just count combos, but these combos are dependent on blockers in player 2's range, which is a little bit different from some other post-flop tools you might have used. Okay, that's it for the post-flop module. Hope you enjoyed. Best of luck at the tables. Cheers and goodbye.